Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're doing a deep dive into one of those books that's really had a lasting impact. It's The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. And I know you're already familiar with the 7 habits themselves,
Yeah,
but we're going to take it a step further.
absolutely.
You're looking for those practical ways to apply these habits
Yeah.
to boost your effectiveness both at work and in your personal life.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
There's always something new to uncover with Covey.
Mhm.
Even if you've read the book, we can go deeper and make sure these habits really make a difference in your life.
Okay, so let's just jump right in.
Hmm.
One of the most interesting ideas Covey presents right off the bat is this contrast between the character ethic and the personality ethic. So he argues that true lasting effectiveness, it's rooted in a solid character,
Hmm.
not just those surface level personality techniques.
It's like you're building a house, right?
Right.
You can have the most amazing facade, but if the foundation's shaky, the whole thing's going to come crumbling down. Covey's saying that so many of us get caught up in appearances and techniques without addressing the deeper stuff, the character traits that actually drive real success.
And Covey uses a personal story to illustrate this point, right? The one about his son's baseball skills.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Yep.
He was so focused on how his son was performing and all the outward techniques that he kind of missed the bigger picture. You know, he was applying that personality ethic,
Hmm.
trying to fix the problem from the outside in.
Almost like trying to fit a square peg in a round hole instead of really understanding and nurturing his son's unique strengths.
That's such a good way to put it. And Covey eventually realized he needed to shift his focus inward, look at his own motives, his own actions, and how they were impacting his son. And that change in perspective, that's what led to a deeper understanding and a much more positive outcome in the end.
So what would you say is the key takeaway here for our listener?
Well, it's that reminder that any lasting change has to start from within. Before we try to fix problems outside of ourselves or boost our performance, we need to take a look at our own character, our motives, how our actions line up with our values. It's that inner work.
And that ties into another fascinating concept from the book, these paradigms. So Covey argues that our paradigms, or the way we see the world, they shape our behavior
Yeah.
and ultimately our effectiveness.
And he uses that famous optical illusion to illustrate this, the one with the old woman and the young woman. So depending on how you look at it,
Oh, yeah.
you see one or the other, but they both exist in the same image. It's like our paradigms are filters that affect how we interpret everything and make decisions.
So you and I could be looking at the same exact situation, but our different paradigms could lead us to totally different conclusions.
Exactly. And Covey was really convinced that there are these universal principles that govern effectiveness. It's like laws of nature.
I
They're
see.
objective and unchanging, whether we acknowledge them or not.
So understanding these principles is key.
Mm-hmm.
If we want to make a real lasting change, not just changing how we behave on the surface.
Yeah. And then there's this pivotal moment in the book, Covey's story, about that angry passenger on the subway. He had this huge paradigm shift when he suddenly realized he had a choice in how he responded to the situation.
It wasn't about the other person's behavior. It was about his own reaction and choosing to de-escalate.
Powerful stuff, right? And it leads us to another fundamental principle. The PPC balance, Covey explains it using the fable of the goose and the golden egg.
The goose and the golden egg. Okay, I'm intrigued. I have a feeling this isn't just about some magical goose.
No, not at all. It's about balance. So the P stands for production. Think of it like those golden eggs. And PC is the production capability,
Okay.
or the goose that lays those eggs.
Ah, I see. So if we only focus on those eggs, those immediate results without taking care of the goose, our ability to keep producing is going to dwindle.
Exactly. And that's what trips so many of us up. We get caught up in that hustle, pushing ourselves to hit those goals, but we forget to invest in the things that keep us going. Our health, relationships, skills, our overall well-being.
We neglect the goose and end up burnt out relationships, strained, and results actually start to decline. I've been there.
I think we all have at some point, Covey, saying that real effectiveness comes from balancing both P and PC.
Right.
So not just focusing on results, but nurturing the source of those results as well.
That makes a lot of sense. And this principle, it's woven through the whole book, right?
Yeah.
Especially when he introduces the 7 habits.
Exactly. It's the foundation.
Now, speaking of the 7 habits, I know you're looking to become more effective both personally and professionally. Would you say those goals are more aligned with what Covey calls private victory or public victory?
That's a really good question. Since you're looking to improve both as an individual and in how you interact with others, I think both private and public victory are going to play a role. Here's how Covey breaks it down. He uses this maturity continuum.
Okay.
The first 3 habits: be proactive, begin with the end in mind, and put first things first. Those are under private victory. So it's about mastering yourself, achieving independence.
Just building that solid foundation we talked about.
Exactly. And once you have that foundation, then you're ready for the public victory habits. Those are about interdependence. Think win-win.
Mm,
Seek first to understand, then to be understood and synergize.
okay.
These habits are all about building those really strong relationships and achieving great things together.
And then, of course, there's habit 7, sharpen the saw,
Yeah.
all about renewal and making sure those victories last.
Right. It's a habit that keeps that goose healthy and laying golden eggs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we're not going to try to cram all 7 habits into today's deep dive, but we can definitely focus on the ones that feel most relevant to you and your goals. Where do you want to start?
Well, since you mentioned wanting to boost your effectiveness at work, I think starting with habit 1, be proactive, that's going to be super valuable. It's the foundation for everything else. And then maybe we can jump into habit 3, put first things first, since that's all about prioritizing and managing your time well.
Those sound like great choices. So let's start with habit 1, be proactive. I'm really curious to explore this idea that we have a space between stimulus and response, where our freedom to choose really lies.
Oh, that's a powerful one. And it's something we can all tap into to be more effective in our lives.
Absolutely. So, okay, let's dive into this whole being proactive thing. I feel like it's got to be more than just, taking initiative.
Oh,
Right?
for sure.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing that we have a choice. Like in any situation, we have the power to choose how we respond. And Covey uses a really powerful story to illustrate the story of Viktor Frankl,
Oh, yeah, Viktor Frankl.
a psychiatrist who survived the Nazi concentration camps.
His story is so incredibly moving.
Yeah.
Even in the face of just unimaginable suffering, he found that freedom to choose his attitude, his response to what was happening to him.
Exactly. And that's where Covey draws this crucial distinction. He introduces this concept of responsibility,
Okay.
highlighting that we actually have the ability to choose our response.
So it's not about being a passive victim of circumstance. It's more about acknowledging that we have agency, even in those really tough situations.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing that we have that power to decide how we interpret those events and how we react to them.
Exactly. And Covey would argue that this ability, this responsibility, it's what sets us apart as humans. We have self-awareness, we have imagination, conscience, independent will, and those are the tools of proactivity.
So it's not about denying the reality of the challenge that we face or pretending that everything's perfect.
No.
It's about recognizing that we have a choice in how we approach them.
Exactly. We can react with negativity, we can blame others, or we can choose a more proactive mindset. Focus on what we can control and look for solutions.
And this reminds me of another concept that Covey brings up, the circle of concern and the circle of influence.
Yes, such a good connection. The circle of concern, it includes all the things we might worry about, right? Big and small. But the circle of influence, those are the things that we can actually do something about.
So shifting our focus from worrying about things outside our control, like, the weather or the economy, to focusing on things we can actually impact, like our actions and attitudes.
Exactly. Dwelling on that circle of concern, it just leads to stress and feeling helpless. But when we put our energy into our circle of influence, that's where we feel empowered and capable of actually making a difference.
Can you give us like a concrete example of how this might play out in like a work situation?
Sure, imagine you're feeling totally overwhelmed with this new project at work. It'd be so easy to get stuck in that circle of concern, worrying about deadlines, whether you have the resources.
Oh, yeah.
But a proactive approach would be to pinpoint what parts of that project are actually within your control.
Okay.
So you could break the project down into smaller tasks, maybe seek clarification on anything that's unclear, or even proactively communicate with your team just to make sure everyone's on the same page.
So you're taking all these proactive steps, and it's shifting your focus from that worry and helplessness to action and problem solving.
And that shift in mindset can make a huge difference. Not only are you going to feel more in control, but you're going to be so much more effective in tackling the challenge.
It's really empowering, isn't it? That focus on what we can control. It feels like a much more positive and productive way to approach those inevitable challenges that we all face.
For sure. And Covey also talks about making and keeping commitments as a way to really strengthen our proactivity muscles.
So it's like building that trust with ourselves and with others by following through on what we say we're going to do.
Yeah, each time we make and keep a commitment, even a small one, we reinforce our sense of integrity, and it kind of builds momentum for taking more proactive action.
And that's so important to the workplace, where reliability and follow-through are key for building trust and credibility with your colleagues.
Absolutely. When you consistently deliver on those promises, you're demonstrating that you're dependable and trustworthy. It strengthens your relationships and really builds a solid reputation.
Okay, so we've got this solid foundation now with habit 1, be proactive. Let's shift gears a little bit and explore habit 3, put first things first. So this habit is all about time management and prioritizing right out.
It is. Covey's argument is that many of us get caught up in this whirlwind of urgent tasks. We're constantly reacting to whatever's the loudest, but we end up neglecting the activities that actually matter for our long-term goals and our well-being.
It's like we're at the mercy of the urgent.
The tyranny of the urgent, he calls it. We're prioritizing other people's agendas instead of our own.
And to combat that, he introduces that time management matrix.
Yes, it's a simple but really powerful tool for categorizing our activities based on urgency and importance.
So it divides tasks into those 4 quadrants,
Yeah.
right? Urgent and important. Not urgent, but
Yeah.
important, urgent, but not important. And then not urgent and not important.
Exactly. And the key to managing our time effectively is to focus on quadrant 2. Those activities that are important but not urgent.
Those are the things that really contribute to our long-term goals, our personal growth, our well-being.
Like planning, exercising, building relationships, developing new skills.
But those are so often the first things to go when those urgent demands start piling up.
Yeah, it's so easy to get caught up in firefighting and putting out those fires that we forget to do the things that would prevent them in the first place.
So how do we break free from that cycle of just reacting to urgency? How do we start prioritizing those important but not urgent activities?
Covey has a few strategies. First, we need to become aware of how we're actually spending our time.
So like track our activities for a week or 2.
Yeah, just to see where it's all going.
Yeah.
Once we have that clear picture, we can start identifying and eliminating those time-wasting activities.
That quadrant 4 stuff. The not urgent and not important.
Exactly. And then we can actually schedule time for those quadrant 2 activities, block out time in our calendars, and treat them with the same importance as any other commitment.
It's about being intentional with our time, making conscious choices about how we want to spend it.
Absolutely. Covey also stresses delegating effectively. Empowering others to handle tasks that don't require our specific skills and expertise.
Which frees up our time, but it also lets other people develop their skills and contribute more.
Exactly. He introduces this idea of stewardship delegation, which is all about focusing on results rather than methods.
It's not about micromanaging
No.
or dictating exactly how something should be done.
It's about communicating the desired outcome, giving them the resources they need, and trusting them to figure out the best way to get there. This empowers people to take ownership of their work and contribute their unique talents, which in the end leads to better results for everyone.
I love this whole concept of put first things first. I could already see how shifting my focus from urgency to importance could really make me so much more effective both at work and in my personal life.
It's a powerful shift. It's about taking control of our time and our lives instead of letting them control us.
And that's a perfect segue into the next set of habits, those public victory habits, all about building effective relationships and achieving synergy with others.
Building on that foundation of private victory and using that independence to create something even greater together.
And it all starts with habit 4, think win-win.
Exactly.
So let's dive into that and explore how this really powerful principle can change our interactions both professionally and personally. Okay, so we're diving into habit 4, think win-win. And this feels like it's more than just negotiating, the best deals. It sounds like a whole mindset shift.
It really is. It's about believing that in every interaction, there's a solution that benefits everyone involved.
So it's not about one person winning and the other person losing. We're actually trying to create these mutually beneficial outcomes.
Exactly. Covey would say that win-win isn't about being nice or giving in. It's about finding solutions that really meet everyone's needs. Create a sense of fairness and respect.
So we're moving away from that scarcity mindset where we think there's only so much to go around, and embracing an abundance mindset where everyone can succeed.
And that's so important when you think about work environments where collaboration and teamwork are absolutely essential. When you approach things with a win-win mindset, it just creates a more positive and productive atmosphere.
Now, Covey, he outlines 5 key elements of a win-win agreement: desired results, guidelines, resources, accountability, and consequences. So by defining those up front, we're all on the same page about the goals, the process, and the expectations.
And that builds trust, reduces the potential for conflict down the line.
He also talks about the importance of thinking through the consequences, both positive and negative,
Right.
of different courses of action.
It's considering the impact of our decisions on everyone involved, not just ourselves.
But what happens when you're dealing with someone who's just stuck in that win-lose mentality? How do you create a win-win situation when the other person isn't even open to it?
That's a really good question, and it can definitely be a challenge. Kai suggests that we can still have an influence by consistently modeling that win-win thinking and demonstrating its benefits.
So even if they're not explicitly saying, hey, I want to win-win,
Yeah.
if we come to the table with that genuine desire to find a solution that works for everyone, it might shift their perspective.
It might. And if a true win-win just isn't possible, Covey talks about the idea of no deal.
Okay.
Sometimes it's better to just walk away than force a solution that doesn't really serve anyone.
So it's about being assertive about our own needs while still respecting the needs of others.
Exactly. It takes a lot of emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
And that leads us perfectly into the next habit. Habit 5, seek first to understand, then to be understood.
This is all about empathy, isn't it?
It is putting ourselves in the other person's shoes.
Covey says most of us listen with the intent to reply
Mhm.
instead of actually trying to understand the other person's perspective.
We're so ready to jump in with our own thoughts and experiences that we miss what they're trying to tell us. And he contrasts that with what he calls empathic listening,
Okay.
which goes beyond just hearing the words. It's about understanding the feelings and the needs behind the words.
So we're not just listening to the words themselves, we're trying to get a sense of where they're coming from.
Exactly. It asks us to put aside our judgments and really focus on their experience.
To put aside our own filters and biases and see the world through their eyes.
Exactly. And Covey recommends practicing reflective listening.
Okay.
So paraphrasing what we've heard just to make sure we're really on the same page.
So it helps us clarify their message, but it also makes them feel heard and validated.
Exactly. And when both people feel understood, it opens the door for real collaboration and finding those solutions that work for everyone.
This has been such a great deep dive into some of Covey's most impactful habits.
Yeah, it has.
We've talked about being proactive, focusing on what we can control, putting first things first, approaching things with that win-win mindset, and of course the power of empathic listening.
And it's important to remember that these habits, they're not just for professional success. They can really impact all areas of our lives,
Yeah.
from our relationships to our interactions with complete strangers.
Covey's 7 habits give us this amazing framework for creating a more fulfilling and meaningful life, where we can thrive both as individuals and in our connections with others.
It's an ongoing journey, too. We can keep learning and growing, striving to be more effective every single day.
So as you move forward, think about which of these habits speaks to you the most, and what's one small step you can take today to put it into practice. Remember, every journey starts with a single step,
Absolutely.
and even small changes can lead to really big results over time.